Hey, everybody. Ready for chapter 4 of Old Bones, the Wonder Horse? I am so sorry it's taken me a while to finish this up, but it's a great story. If you remember, we've read chapter 1, 2, and 3. We've got a horse that some people are not being very nice to. They're calling Old Bones. His real name is Exterminator because the owner thought that he'd exterminate the competition. Right now, because nobody thinks he's that great, he's trying to help another horse get ready for the Kentucky Derby. And that other horse doesn't seem to be very excited about running full speed all the time. But Old Bones does seem to be excited about running. And Old Bones, remember, this is a true story. Chapter 4, The Eve of the Derby. Mr. Kilmer greeted his trainer cheerfully. Good morning, Henry. How's Sunbriar? That's the horse that he's trying to train. McDaniel hated to say what he had to say, but there was no use beating around the bush. He said, Sunbriar is sluggish, Mr. Kilmer. I don't think he should run tomorrow. What? Take Sunbriar out of the Derby? Scratch him? Now, the day before the race? That's what I mean, McDaniel said sadly. I just don't think he's in condition for the Derby. I can't believe it. What's wrong with him? What happened? He's sluggish and off his feed. I don't think he's up to the race. I don't think it'd be fair to the horse to race him. McDaniel, are you sure? You know what this means to me. 2 years of planning and hoping, of work and money have gone into preparing this colt for the Kentucky Derby. I know. I know how much you counted on tomorrow. Others counted on it too. If we had known sooner, it might not have been so hard to take. But the day before the Derby? Why, we have guests from all over the country here to see my colt run. And Mrs. Kilmer's party tonight. His voice was bitter. A party to celebrate my first Derby entry. It's fantastic. He looked at McDaniel searchingly. You are sure? Yes, I'm sure. And believe me, Mr. Kilmer, it was a hard decision to make. There was a long silence. Then Mr. Kilmer said, Well, you're the trainer. You're the man who must decide whether the horse is fit to run or not. If you say he isn't, there's only one thing I can do. Mr. McDaniel was getting ready to leave when another caller arrived. It was Mr. Matt Wynn. He looked at the bleak faces of the trainer and owner and said, I see you've decided to scratch Sunbriar. Yes. I know this is a shocking disappointment for you, Kilmer. You've counted on Sunbriar for a long time. Yes, said Mr. Kilmer. This is a blow that's hard to take. I've never had a Derby entry before. Knowing the Kilmer colors would be in the race this year has meant a great deal to me. Mr. McDaniel felt sorry for Mr. Kilmer. He wished he could think his own judgment might be wrong, but he was sure Sunbriar was just not in condition, and his decision was the right one. Matt Wynn said, Who was the horse working out with Sunbriar this morning? Mr. Kilmer spoke bitterly. A truck horse named Exterminator. A workhorse McDaniel here spent too much of my money for. Mr. Wynn said carefully, He didn't look bad in the workout. I thought he looked rather well. Perhaps, Mr. Kilmer exploded. You're not suggesting I put my colors up on that workhorse, are you? That horse can't outrun me. He rose abruptly. I've had enough for one day. Angrily, he strode out of the room. Mr. Wynn said, I didn't mean to insult him. Probably a foolish idea. The horse most likely isn't even eligible. Yes, he is, Mr. McDaniel spoke eagerly. Cal Millam nominated him for the Derby. He bought him from Cal. He's eligible, all right. Well, you're the trainer. What do you think? I think he can run. I had my eye on him some time before we bought him. He's fast and strong. We bought him as a workhorse, yes, but I never underestimated his speed. And Henry McDaniel started to tell Matt Wynn more about Old Bones. but thought better of it and finished. He's the best-natured thoroughbred I ever had anything to do with. Mr. Wynne smiled. You ought to be able to give Kilmer a good sales talk. With Sunbriar out anyhow, he has little to lose. Next to winning the race, of course. Kilmer wants more than anything in the world to see his silk in the Derby. Go talk to him. I'll wait. At first, Mr. Kilmer wouldn't listen to Henry McDaniel. He cut him short angrily. The suggestion that I run that plug ugly workhorse is the silliest thing I ever heard. Why, he looks as if he's ready to fall apart. He's not handsome, I know, Mr. McDaniel admitted. But he can't even run, Mr. Kilmer interrupted. Don't forget, I watched him work out. Sunbriar walked away from him. He wasn't running then, but he can run, McDaniel said stubbornly. Bah! He's no racehorse. Kilmer's voice rose. He didn't even do a job as a workhorse. He's fit for the livery stable, that's all. And by gad, that's where I intend to send him. McDaniel spoke in desperation. Mr. Kilmer, you don't know the horse. He has strength and speed and as much class as a rail fence, Kilmer roared. Forget his appearance. I know he's ugly. He may not look as if he's got any class. His class is where you can't see it. It's on the inside. He's honest and intelligent, and he's got plenty of heart in that big ramshackle body of his. I won't say he'll win the Derby for you, but I will say he won't disgrace the Kilmer colors if you run him. Before Kilmer could answer, Matt Wynn's voice cut in. He walked into the room saying, You want your silks up, Kilmer. Run him. If he were my horse, I'd have him in the Derby tomorrow. You would? Kilmer asked, surprised. I would indeed. Mr. Kilmer stared at the two men for a minute, then threw his hands up in the air. All right. I'm probably a fool to be talked into this, but I'll send the workhorse to the post tomorrow instead of to a livery stable. Reluctantly, Willis Kilmer announced that a chestnut gelding named Exterminator would wear the Kilmer colors in the Kentucky Derby. That evening, rain clouds hung low and darkness fell early, but only the weather was dismal. In Louisville, and for miles around, there was a gaiety and merrymaking. It was the night before the Derby, a night for parties and fun. People had come to Kentucky from all over the nation. Yes, from Canada and from Europe, too. They must see more than the Derby. They must see Kentucky hospitality at its gayest. Against the dark night, the great country houses blazed with light. Inside the houses, bands played, people danced and sang. The light glittered from chandeliers, shimmered on silken gowns, shone on silver and crystal and gleaming damask. Tables were laid with magnificent feasts, country ham, fried chicken, roast duck, beaten biscuits, cakes and pies, and special puddings. And never did a dish stay empty. The sounds of music and dancing, song and laughter overflowed the house, spilled across the fields and meadows into the night. In Louisville, too, all doors were opened wide in welcome. There was scarcely a house not filled with guests. People packed the hotels and restaurants and jammed the streets. They crowded lobbies and porches and doorways and stood in line waiting their turn to get rooms and meals and cabs. And they talked. There were hundreds of thousands of people in Louisville that night. Many of them had never seen each other before and would never see each other again. But there were no strangers. They were all friends, for they had one common interest and talked of one thing, the Kentucky Derby. The big news, the shocking news, was that Sunbriar would not run. Have you heard? They asked. Kilmer has scratched Sunbriar. Sunbriar won't run. Isn't that something? I came all the way from California to see Sunbriar win that race. Have you heard? Sunbriar is out of the Derby. Sunbriar is scratched. I came all the way from New York to see the colt take the Derby. Is it true that Kilmer has scratched Sunbriar? Yes, it's true. If Sunbriar isn't in the race, who will win? Who's the favorite now? War Cloud will win. War Cloud is the favorite. No, it's not going to be War Cloud. Escoba. Escoba will win. You'll see. Escoba will win. No, I think it's Viva America. Viva America will take it. But American Eagle has a chance. What about James T. Clark? Lucky B will win it. He likes the mud. The track will be muddy. Lucky B is my choice. What about Sewell Combs? He could win it, yes. Sewell Combs will be right in there. War Cloud, Viva America, Escoba to be sure to win. So they talked and talked. But nobody said exterminator. Not one person said the word exterminator. What a good book.